Welcome to the Savvy Scoop podcast, the show where we explore the people, problems, and possibilities at the intersection of law and technology. I am your host, Doug Stryker. On this show, we'll dive into what's working in legal tech, what is not working, and where forward-thinking leaders are taking the legal industry next. This episode is brought to you by Savvy Training and Consulting, helping law firms stay sharp, secure, and future-ready. Today, I'm joined by John O'Haron, a partner and vice president at Thompson McMullan in Richmond, Virginia. He is a seasoned appellate attorney, a former clerk at the Supreme Court of Virginia, and a thought leader in navigating complex legal arguments and firm strategy. John is a professional who blends deep legal rigor with a clear passion for people, and I can't wait to explore what drives him. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doug. Happy to be here.
So, of course, I had to look you up on LinkedIn and a few other places, but I want to start by getting a little bit behind the resume to begin with. What first drew you to becoming a lawyer, and specifically an appellate lawyer, and what keeps it interesting for you today?
So I became a lawyer, not really because I had any specific area of law or, kind of lawyer that I wanted to be. It was more the sort of academic, nerdy, intellectual side of the law. Like I had taken a constitutional law class in college, and just the way that laws are written and interpreted and the level of sort of subjectivity versus objectivity in the law, all of these questions fascinated me. And so I didn't quite go to law school just because I had nothing else to do, but something not too far from that.
Okay.
I wanted to sort of study law. That was more of the reason why I went. I got into appeals for a lot of the same reasons, and my interests were in the sort of deeper thinking about law, and legal writing started to fascinate me in law school, and I started to have an interest in it and a skill in it. And then thankfully, I've been very blessed to fall into a very good clerkship with a wonderful mentor, my former boss, Chief Justice Kinzer on the Supreme Court of Virginia. I ended up having a longer clerkship with her than either she or I had anticipated. So I clerked for 5 years before coming to Thompson McMullan. And during that clerkship, I had an interest in appeals. That's why I applied to her. But it still was not like I'm going to become an appellate lawyer until a few years into my appellate clerkship. I felt like I really, really enjoyed not just clerking and working with the justice, but the work that was involved in appellate advocacy, the crafting of legal arguments, the strategies involved in what to say and how to say it, what not to say, how to structure your brief in a persuasive way, how to distill complicated things into sort of plain language for generalist judges. And so, coming out of my clerkship, I just decided it's one of the reasons I came to Thompson McMullan. I told them that at the outset. They were interested in me coming here and doing appellate work. And so as soon as I got here, I set out to sort of internally market to become internally our appellate person, and then externally market to start bringing in appellate work. And so I think the last part of your question was the day-to-day. The variety of appellate law is part of what I love. I'm not a subject matter expert in any area of law. What I can do, and what appellate advocates do, is they take any area of law and they learn it well enough for that case to translate it into language that appellate judges and justices can digest and be persuaded of. And so that variety, legal writing, arguing, oral arguments in court, I absolutely love. And that's sort of the day-to-day thing that keeps me happy coming into work and happy for the new case that comes in.
Did Thompson McMullan have an appellate practice before you got there?
They didn't. I mean, the firm has always had a pretty robust litigation practice. And I remember seeing two different Thompson McMullan lawyers at the Supreme Court arguing cases. So always well known when I was clerking, the firm was well known, and I was, several of the justices said very high things about Thompson McMullan. But no, there was no sort of dedicated appellate practice or a lawyer or several lawyers that sort of made appellate practice their focal point.
Okay.
But it was enough litigation here that it was sort of a natural next step for the firm. Was we have a ton of litigation that turns into appeals, it makes sense to bring on John here to, sort of start handling all the appeals.
Did you think when you became a partner at Thompson McMullan that you would be not just a partner, but on the technology committee and driving the firm in terms of culture and technology and leadership of where the firm is going from where it's been?
No. The reason I'm involved in these things is because I do have an interest in them, and thankfully, some people think I have at least a moderate level of aptitude to be useful. But I, no, I think my goal here was always, at first was to just prove to everybody here that I could be a really good lawyer, start building a law practice from those skills and from that work. The sort of non-billable side of the law, whether that's management or technology or, HR, any of those things were not on my radar at all, had never been I wasn't setting out to get into them. So no, it wasn't really something that I had contemplated, even at the point of when I became a partner. I mean, I was starting to get involved in more things, and I liked getting involved in more things. And I love where I work, and I love the people here, so it was a natural fit to start being more involved. But no, it's gone in some interesting directions.
Sure, I'm sure. So in some of those interesting directions, how do you help balance the competing interests between generating revenue and client needs, attorney well-being, and professional staff?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's one of the things that sort of even before I got involved with it that I was balancing trial level work with appellate work. And as my appellate work increased, my trial work decreased, but they're very different skill sets. They're very different pacing of the cases. It's very different. If you're doing trial level work, you're almost never just sitting down and absorbing briefs for 4 hours or,
Right.
dedicated writing like that. So learning that balancing act, I'm still learning it, but that was sort of the start of trying to balance sort of very different things in my practice. But I read, it's sort of a famous work, I think, Deep Work by Cal Newport, and that and sort of related issues on sort of how our brain works have helped me, and just sort of noticing how I work. So practically speaking, I try to do my most sort of the work that needs the most thinking from me, I try to do in the morning. And until late morning, that's the window of time that I try to do things that I know require either intense thinking or legal writing or things like that. And I try to do emailing and phone calls and non-billable work more around the periphery,
Okay.
in the more tired afternoon or around lunchtime or with lunch or the late afternoon.
Right.
But yeah, it's a balancing act. And I just sort of, every day I try to get done the non-billable stuff that really needs doing to keep things moving along. But there's a lot of things on that to-do list, so to speak, that I don't get to every day or even every week. And I just sort of try to keep them moving. So there's a lot of like nights or evenings or weekends or early mornings where I can do enough if I'm organized to keep things moving along, and other people can help me keep things moving along. And then those bracket off times for the more deep work.
Thank you for that. How do client needs or client requests like bubble up to you? And then how do you decide when and what to act on? Like, are there things that clients come to the firm and say, we wish you would do this, or we want you to do that, or we want you to stop doing this? Like, how do you make business decisions for the benefit of the clients and the benefit of the firm at the same time?
Yeah, it varies widely. So my direct clients, I can usually tell very quickly, either if it's a phone call or an email, either way, I can tell pretty quickly two things. One is how urgent it is that I get back to them. I mean, and I think most lawyers have a good rule of thumb, like you should get back to a client within 24 hours. Nobody expects you to drop everything unless it's truly a, urgent situation. But how urgent the response is needed and how much time it's going to take me to put together the response. We have a lot of really good lawyers here, and we have a lot of really good non-lawyer staff. And so when it comes to client needs, I can pretty quickly assess what's needed to get them an answer and when. And I have a great team. We have great lawyers here that I can outsource a lot of that to them because I'm almost never on a case by myself. The sort of firm focused needs, not client focused needs, those usually bubble up differently, right? Those come from being around your coworkers and being at meetings with this group of people, or being aware of this situation, or having somebody come into your office and talk about this. And those, it's similar. Some of them are immediate and I need to drop everything that I'm doing to go, address something. And some of them are not at all. And, I can either delegate it out, or if it's something that I should handle or can quickly handle, I'll go handle it. But I'll sort of have to assess against client needs how to prioritize these things. So yeah, it's variety. Famous lawyer answer: it depends.
It depends. And the other famous line is, most people are not calling a lawyer when they're having a good day.
Correct. Yeah. And my appellate practice is very different. We have lawyers here who have very answering phone calls from clients on things that need to be done today and tomorrow practices.
Right.
I don't really have that. I don't have a practice like that. I have a few cases that require more sort of client contact and ongoing work to keep them moving or to address concerns. But one of the benefits of an appellate practice is it is more sort of removed from the chaos and hubbub of a lot of people's immediate needs. And I'm working to sort of preserve a victory or to overturn a loss. And so day to day, my average day, I'm sure, has a lot fewer phone calls and emails than a lot of lawyers here.
Most of the appellate lawyers I know they're all very cool and calm and collected, and then the trial attorneys are the ones running around with their hair on fire.
Yeah.
Usually. I looked on the firm's website, and my question is about the firm's core values, and I really like them, and I really like how they're written as well: dignity, community, honor, civility, teamwork, and passion. How do you leverage or position the firm core values into culture, creating culture, and business decisions as well? How do you mirror client work, business decisions from the firm's set of core values?
Yeah. I think it was one of the things that I really loved about the firm when I was interviewing here and decided to come here, was a place that really, the culture of the place was markedly different. You could just tell walking in the building. And you could tell from the conversations you had with the partners who were interviewing you. It's not that we don't work hard. It's that we recognize that being a good lawyer, you can be a better lawyer by being a better person. And we will be a better business by all of us trying to just be good people. So a lot of those core values, they're each significant and important, but a lot of them come down to just being good people. And I think that community, whether it's your family, your faith, your extracurricular sports, your hobbies, whatever it is that make you a well-rounded person, make you a better employee, make you a better lawyer, gives you the energy and the well-being when it's time to hunker down because there's a filing deadline that just came in the door. When it comes to helping a client who really is having a really bad day or a bad year or a bad, something that can drastically change the course of their life, you being able to keep your composure and think to a proper good outcome for this person, you're in a much better position to do that if you yourself are not drowning in too much work and too much pressure and sort of a soul-sucking environment that unfortunately a lot of law firms have. Mm-hmm. So I think here, that's always sort of animated the place, the people in charge, the management. It still does today. It did when I got here. That tone has been set for many, many years, thankfully. And the day-to-day of it is that we hire really, really good people, because they see those values and they care about those values, and we talk about them and they see the kind of place that we are. And so we hire good people that when it comes to managing the firm or strategic decisions or business decisions, we sort of like each other, right? We trust each other's judgment. We can talk to each other and push and pull and decide what the best course is. And we know that we ourselves, I know very little Like decisions are best made by the people who know better, right? So whether it's an issue that affects associates, I was once an associate, but the issues that are affecting associates now, I don't know them unless I listen to associates. And the
Right.
issues that are affecting HR and staff and, the people's frustrations with the technology we have or not, I use things for my own practice. But if I don't listen to, what people are reporting up to us, then we can't make good decisions. So, yeah, I think it starts with hiring the right people. And I'm sure that's sort of not novel tidbit of wisdom, but like that animates a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So besides the obvious and the easy, like burritos on Friday and year-end bonuses, what are a few of the intentional things that the firm has done that you've done at the firm to reinforce morale, to help
Yeah.
uplift everybody? Like, what are a few of the actual things you've done to make those values and that community persist?
Yeah. So I was on the receiving end of a lot of this. Had a health situation in my immediate family years ago when I first started. And the entire firm, almost to a person, was just so kind and caring and attentive. And the lawyers, instead of being like, hey, tough luck, get me that brief by next week, it was tell me what you're working on so that we can give it to other people because you need time away and so that's things like that happened. It was not unique to me. That happens a lot to everybody.
Hmm.
We have one thing that we do here that I really love is we have like wedding showers and baby showers when
Okay.
anybody's expecting a baby, when anybody's going off and getting married. So we have a great sort of family vibe to the place. And that does include things like, people bringing in donuts and hanging out, social events that we put on, Christmas parties that we do, whatever the case may be. But it's more concrete than that. We celebrate people's anniversaries of how long they've been here. Everybody sort of gets along in a way that I don't think is all that common. And I think we're at a size of our firm. Now we have about 26 lawyers. I think about 60 employees. Where everybody knows each other, and when we
Yeah.
have a big event, whether it's a baseball game outing or a holiday party, enough of the firm are there that we're sort of hanging out together, and it is and kids are welcome, spouses are welcome, significant others are welcome, and so the firm has always done and continues to do a really good job at things like that make it seem like that just make it feel like a positive, healthy place to work.
I mean, more than just a work environment. It's a place where people go to work, but also have community and friendships and
Yeah,
true friendships inside and
yeah,
outside the firm.
yeah,
So we're going to talk a little bit about technology. You're in a field where tradition often outweighs innovation. How do you personally determine or evaluate whether a new technology is worth looking at, studying, and potentially even adopting?
yeah. That's a great question. So I think the first thing is at least for me personally, it a new technology or a system will only sort of grab my attention if it resonates on something that I think we don't do very well, or that we can do better, I should say. So there are things within litigation practice that, whether it's because I was an associate or because, now from the vantage point of being a partner with associates working on cases with me, I see inefficiencies, or maybe it's something that just paying attention to the legal field, I see that lots of other people are doing. And so I'll take a look at it to see if it's something that would help us. So that's a big consideration is, does this purport to resolve an issue that I think we could improve on? Another is how complicated it is, because we are not just an industry, but yeah, I mean the industry as a whole, and we have a lot of varied. I think something unique about our firms, we have a lot of different practice areas. We have, we have a big litigation practice, and we sort of have big overarching practice groups, but we have a lot of people who do very sort of different things. And so, we just used you guys to do NetDocs, and NetDocs itself, the way that it interacts with litigators is very different than the way that it interacts with a bankruptcy lawyer or a corporate
Mm-hmm.
lawyer. And so navigating those differences is very important. And so when I think of, and AI is a good example because AI is all the rage, and there's this and there's that and this other thing, and everybody's always talking about how great it is and how it's going to put all of us out of business. Those types of things resonate with me to look into more if they seem to answer something that is an impediment, or not an impediment, but like just something that I feel like we can be doing better.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of persuasion that is once you know something, you sort of would need to convince other people that this is a thing worth spending money on or worth learning about, because it will answer some issue or some problem that we have as a firm. And that part of things is its own sort of challenge, because we have bankruptcy, corporate, elder law and estate planning, litigation, all different practice areas.
And all these things, I guess, cost money. So you have to decide, is it worth the investment? Is it worth the squeeze? So
Yeah.
Thinking about those things you've looked at, that you've decided on, what's one or two that was an investment that you looked at, decided on, and actually paid off for you?
So one is firm-wide, and it's NetDocs. I mean, we reached a point where we felt, for a number of reasons, that our document management needs were significant and we needed a better solution. That manifested in ways in litigation that didn't necessarily manifest in all the same ways in other practice areas. But in litigation, it was common enough and happening often enough that a lot of us were realizing we really need to up our document management game here to improve efficiencies, retain good lawyers, make it less difficult for associates to do work. One of the things we do great here is associates work for a lot of different partners. So if you come in as an associate, we're not sort of pigeonholing you and making you do this thing because it's most efficient. No, we want you to experience working for a lot of different lawyers, and we want you to experience working in a lot of different areas and see what you like. And doing that here is so much easier if everybody's sort of reading off of the same sheet of music from the document management perspective. So that's a big one firm-wide, that we're in year one here of a NetDocs transition, and happy, successful so far, I think we can say. But that was one firm-wide.
Not without a few issues, and training and user adoption and getting things moving. But I think that's par for the course for any new technology adoption.
Yeah. No, I think we definitely did have, and still have, and probably will for a long time have, transition hiccups. But yeah, things that we expected and that I think anybody would experience with a new technology and with changes that don't even relate to technology, those sort of transition hiccups whenever anything that big is changing. In my practice, I've started using Claude, which is an AI tool. And I have found it to help in a number of ways, in my appellate practice, but also in sort of the management side of. So one sort of low hanging fruit on it is it doesn't write me blog posts. Well, it does, but they're garbage. Like it churns out absolute, garbage. But the garbage it churns out is a great start for me to spend an hour fixing and writing up. Okay, I really don't like this thing, but came out from this. Let me talk about this instead. So I've used it for that, and it's very effective and takes me way less time than it used to write something from scratch. Mm-hmm. And then, on the appellate or briefing side, just putting in publicly filed documents, the way that it can read those documents, analyze those documents, and spit out in seconds very useful outlines or moot courts or difficult questions that I could expect from the judge or judges. These are all things that I sort of view it, and I've heard, at CLEs it talked about, like, treat this like a really good intern or like a new associate.
Right.
You better be reading every single word that it puts out. You better be cross-checking everything, but it can be a very, very significant time savings. And I've used it personally in my practice a fair amount and have found it very useful. We haven't gotten to the point of doing anything firm-wide. I mean, other than the sort of AI that's provided within Lexis, which is what we use, which is also unbelievably powerful and significant. So yeah, those would be sort of the two things that come to mind most quickly.
So I think that's a good segue to, looking ahead 1 year, 1 month, 5 years, 10 years. Is AI the disruptive technology for law firms, or is it AI in combination with something else? Like, what's going to be, in your opinion, the most interesting or disruptive technology that we're looking at in the next handful of years?
Yeah, I think it would have to be AI. I don't see any other um, competition for it. I think before AI was coming along, there were a lot of interesting technologies that made trial practice. Apple's got some products that you can use on your iPad that make you look like an absolute wizard magician at trial. That I have experienced people who know how to do that. I do not. But yeah, I think AI now, and whether that's the products that are built into Lexis and Westlaw, for example, the legal specific products,
Mm-hmm.
um, or it's just using the non-legal specific products for legal purposes. I I mean, from my perspective, there are things that are quite obviously going to change a lot. There's a lot of uncertainty, and maybe that's common in lots of industries. Is how is this going to affect us? And I haven't used a ton of them. I mean, there are lots and lots of products out there for law firms and lawyers specifically that I don't have any experience with. I hear a lot of their names and hear people endorsing this, that, or the other, but um, I think one of the bigger things is I think about like legal research. Like when I started legal research on Lexis, you've got your Boolean terms and your search terms, and it took a certain amount of time to find what you were looking for
Right.
often. And I don't think it takes very long to find what you're looking for anymore. I think that's both good and bad. It's good because an associate today should be able to find an answer to a legal question in a fraction of the time that maybe it used to take. Um, I think it's bad because I think younger lawyers today don't have to read the same things. And maybe this is like back in my day, I'm trying not to
But
strike
it's
that
true.
down.
But it's true.
It's
Yeah.
true, and I think the difference now is that if you search on Lexis's AI system for the answer to a question, it almost always gives you the right answer immediately, and it gives you a correct case, unlike the services that hallucinate and make up fake cases.
Yeah.
Lexis gives you a real case that almost always has the right answer. And you're starting from the answer and working back to check it if you're doing your job. Like you're not just relying on the AI, you're making sure that that is correct. But the journey to get to the right answer is what lawyers used to do more than they're doing now. And I think that journey to find the right answer made for good lawyering. It made for good lawyers. In 10 years of doing that, you just knew a whole bunch of stuff about a bunch of areas of law because you had to really track down and find the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now you sort of don't have to take that same intellectual journey to find an answer. So I think that's an area, at least in litigation, that pops to mind with AI products that I think is very transformational and will continue changing a lot of people.
And I think one of the things that I've heard a lot of is it's not going to replace our jobs; it's going to change it. So the amount of time spent, the amount of efficiency, the amount of research needing to spend 15 hours learning things, that is going to shift. And then what will we do with our extra time? We're not really going to have extra time, but how are we going to spend that more efficiently, getting to deeper, better answers?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, John, we're going to go a little bit quicker for a few of these next
All right.
questions. Are you ready?
Ready. Quick
Okay.
hits.
These aren't hard, so don't start sweating. You mentioned earlier a book you read, but how do you continue to grow as a leader? Are you a reader, a listener, a mentor, a mentee? How do you grow as a human and as a lawyer?
Yeah, I think all of those are important, and that may be the easy way out. But all of the above. I mean, I think being a mentor to other people helps enormously. I think I'm a big reader. I love reading. I think reading just makes you a better writer and a better thinker. If whatever you're reading, if it's just good writing, you're doing yourself a favor if you're a lawyer to read it. And being a mentee, I mean, I think you never reach a point where you sort of don't need other people's valuable advice and input. There are always people who have gone through what you're going through. There are always people who have a valuable perspective on a situation that you're trying to resolve. All right, That was not a quick hit. I got to stop there. So all of the above.
I like it. Okay, if you had 60 seconds to advise a new managing partner about what really matters in a law firm, what would you say? I know.
What really matters?
I think you've said it. I think you've said it. Not to answer for you, but I think you've said it throughout this whole conversation through your tone and cadence and the things that make you tick and the things that you care about.
Yeah, I think listening is probably at the top of the list. I think it's hard for people who manage, especially we weird lawyers who have this thing where we're lawyers, but we're the ones managing our business. Like we're an odd profession in that way. Prioritizing is right up there also. Like there's no end to the things that I could do on my cases or on the management side.
Right.
And so prioritizing firm needs, prioritizing client needs, case needs. But yeah, I think for all of those things, listening to associates who bring you ideas and answers and strategy and that, listening to your employees and other managing partners or other people who have insights. I think listening to your people, as long as you're confident that you've got good people, which I am, listening to them is probably at the top.
And I can vouch for you that you've got good people, because for the listeners out there, we've worked together, and without a doubt, you have terrific people. All right, a lightning round, aka the quick brief, 6 quick hits. What is your favorite legal technology tool?
Probably talk to text on my iPhone.
Okay, I like that very much. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
How early?
5 a.m.
I like that. Same here. What is the last book or article that really resonated with you?
Legal or everything?
Anything.
I read a book called Loris recently, which is a work of fiction from Russia, modern fiction, but by a Russian author. That resonated with me a lot.
I don't know that one. I'll have to look it up and read it.
Yeah, it was good.
For work, remote, in office, or hybrid?
For me, in office. I got 5 kids at home. I can't work at home.
Okay. Who is your personal legal hero?
I would have to say Chief Justice Kinzer, my former boss, taught me in understated, quiet ways the most important lessons that I've learned about being a good lawyer.
Excellent. And this might be the hardest one, or not. If you were not a lawyer, what would you be doing?
I would be in some smoky office, probably in academia, just reading like Russian literature, or I love reading fiction. So some academic world where I get to read a lot of books, I think is where I'd be.
I think that sounds appropriate for you, John. I like that answer very much. Okay. John, right. That was fantastic. Thank you for your candid and insightful conversation with us. And I hope that our listeners are walking away inspired. And to our listeners, if you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and pass it along to your colleagues. And until next time, stay savvy.
Thanks, Doug.